Well, hello and welcome to the August tarot reading. I hope you're keeping cool and dry. It's been really hot and wet here in Southwest Michigan. So this month I had several questions that kept coming up in my mind, and they were all tangled up at first. I kept seeing articles that said China is the real threat to the U.S., which caused me to wonder, is that really true, or were they just being presented as a threat because people in Washington, D.C. want to be the only ones with power? So I decided to ask about China, just looking at it and its future to gain a bit of clarity about what we need to know and understand. Next, I was introduced to AI this past week when Alan and Son Lundell, Lundell, of the Dr. Future show, stayed at the farm for a few days, and they got me to play with Chat GPT. I already have my own ideas and experience with extremely sophisticated AI used by people who have interstellar technologies, but I started wondering about the best way for a beginner civilization to approach AI. So that became my second question. The third question came out of my ongoing concern that the spirit of the people in the US, France, England, Italy, Germany, and other places in the West was drooping. It was drooping quite a bit. So last month, I asked about our evolution in the face of many challenges, and the card drawn was the Five of Cups, indicating sadness, anxiety, and spiritual exhaustion. So I felt it was important to check in again, sort of like taking a sick child's temperature, to see if we were better, worse, or holding our own. And the cards offered some surprising insight. So let's begin. The three specific questions asked were, number one, what is the future of China over the next 3 to 5 years? Number two, what is the best way for people to approach the subject and capabilities of artificial intelligence? And number three, what's happening with the spirit of the people living in the US and the Western countries now in 2023? So the cards drawn were, for question number one about China, the Six of Pentacles. For question number two about artificial intelligence, it was the Empress, number 3 in the major arcana. For question number 4, or question number 3, which was kind of a check-in as to the spirit of people here in the US and in the Western countries, I got the Three of Wands, and what fell out with it was the Five of Cups, the same thing that I got last month. That says a whole lot right there. So let's look at these a little more in depth. Question number one, what is the future of China over the next 3 to 5 years? And the Six of Pentacles is our card. And I'm definitely not a scholar when it comes to China, but the Six of Pentacles is a very interesting card when applied to China. This card is the Mirror card, reflecting issues around wealth, talent, and need. The questions around these issues go in so many directions. Who or what is this card trying to mirror? Or who or what is China trying to mirror? Is it the U.S.? Is it the power that the U.S. once had as the world's hegemon? Let's hope not, because that power was based on corruption and deceit. Are they the final mirror? Is China the final mirror in a third dimensional system that is following the Peter principle and has risen to the point of no longer being competent to keep things organized and working well? Will they represent the beginning mirror of a fledgling fourth dimensional system that thinks in terms of planetary well-being for all? Perhaps, but I'm getting ahead of myself because we're only looking at the next 3 to 5 years. When you look at this card, you see a very wealthy man holding the scales of justice in one hand and dropping 4 small coins into the hands of 1 or 2 people, 2 beggars kneeling in front of him. The wealthy man has a red turban on his head and is wearing a blue and white striped tunic and a red coat. He has green boots on his feet, and both the ground and the sky are shades of gray. In the distant background, there are trees and a city high on a hill. The beggar receiving the coins is wearing a yellow robe, and his head appears to be bandaged, and or maybe he's wearing some kind of a headdress. And the other beggar is wearing a blue robe that has been patched. Because our question centers around China, the wealthy man symbolizes China. And the coins being dropped into the hands of the beggar, who symbolizes beggar nations, point to the great position China will have over the next few years. It emphasizes the strength and power that China will hold. The beggars represent the weaker nations seeking money for development, and the scales of justice indicate the need for those weaker nations to weigh the pros and cons of any agreements they are making. The scales call for the leaders of those beggar nations to be aware of what the people of their nation really need and what they are capable of. Is there true added value for all the deals they are making? The red turban on the wealthy man symbolizes a lot of passion, passionate thinking, and possible aggression kept under wraps, at least for the next 3 to 5 years. The blue and white striped tunic symbolizes the need for honesty, truth, and clarity regarding the intentions of the wealthy man. And the red robe, again, represents passion and power, which often overwhelm or obscure the honesty, truth, and clarity. The green boots indicate a fresh approach to power, but boots can represent a heavy foot on the people. Thus, the fresh approach may be different, but not better, and perhaps not even wanted. The trees in the distant background symbolize nature and family. And the fact that they are so small and so far in the background points to like a lack of attention and possibly uncaring policies and deals that do not nurture nature or family. This hints at desperate deals. Watch out, people. The city on the hill in the distance symbolizes several things. First, it indicates the possibility of a power structure that puts itself above others and is also unreachable. Second, it could point to the possibility of the elevation of humanity and the good life for all. Third, it highlights the need for people in communities to detach themselves from the hustle and bustle of life long enough to become aware of who they are, how they want to live, what they want to offer to the world, and what kinds of give and take arrangements they are willing to enter into in order to make their offering to the world. Everyone has something to offer. In fact, the general overall meaning of this card is one of give and take. Give and take. and especially of the need to create win-win situations in those give and take deals. However, there's also a warning that calls attention to someone giving something with strings attached, or generosity with hidden motives. China is busy building roads, bridges, dams, and infrastructure all across Asia, Europe, and Africa. It is already the top trading partner of countries in South America. Where's China getting the money for all of this investment? Are they printing money like the US does? And what kinds of strings are attached to the investment agreements they set up? Do they benefit both sides equally for the long term? Those are important questions. This card would say that over the next 3 to 5 years, China will continue to offer help to struggling countries, but those countries should be careful to set up win-win deals. If they fail to do this, and if China does not ensure true fairness, China will learn that the more people they try to control, the more unable they will become to satisfy anyone. And this leads to downfall. The wise man learns to guide, not control. This card is known as the Lord of Success and falls under the influence of the 6, which is associated with keywords: harmony, cooperation, generosity, balance, beauty, helping those in need, prudence, distribution of wealth, rigid, decisive, and abrupt. This card says that China is obviously going to be moving to the top of the heap over the next 3 to 5 years. However, one of the descriptions of this card is, quote, a naked man holding a key that brings power, nobility, dominion over people, oppression, and devastation of lands, end quote. Obviously, that is the warning implied by this card, a warning that applies to those who fail to maintain win-win dealings with China. Question number 2. What is the best way for people to think about and approach the subject of artificial intelligence and its capabilities? And the card drawn here was the Empress, number 3 of the major arcana. This card is so rich with meaning that it's hard to know where to begin. And actually, of all the cards that could have come up, the Empress is the last one I would have thought would appear in response to a question about artificial intelligence, simply because the Empress card is the card of the mother. And what it implies is powerful, almost stunning. When you look at the card, you see a regal woman wearing a long flowered robe and seated on a red and orange throne made of cushions and pillows. She is wearing a crown of 12 stars and laurel leaves, and she's holding a scepter representing Venus, goddess of love, money, and the power of the feminine. Leaning up against the throne near her right knee, there is a large gray heart with a symbol of Venus on it, and right behind the throne, there's an area of black where white symbols of Venus are repeated many times. The foreground of the card shows a field of ripe grain, and in the background, there's a beautiful forest with many kinds of trees. Winding through the trees is a river that comes to a small waterfall near the gray ground surrounding the throne, and the sky above is bright yellow. The Empress symbolizes royalty, majesty, and sovereignty. And since our question has to do with how to think about AI, this represents the idea that while computers are wonderful and have made a huge difference in our lives, they are the serfs of the computer world. And artificial intelligence is the royal side of the computer world. It indicates that AI is a step above the usual computer operation, and I would add that as humans expand their consciousness and move toward higher states of being, this higher state will be represented in the world of computers by a move toward AI, which will become the mother of a whole new kind of civilization. The flowered robes worn by the Empress indicate the flowering of artificial intelligence. Orange, her throne is orange. Orange is the color of business, successful business. And the orange cushion that forms part of the throne symbolizes the impact AI will have on business, especially the business of life and common sense, common perceptions. The red pillow and the flowing red fabric of the throne represent the passion and the power with which AI will affect the fabric of life, along with the swiftness of those changes in how we do things, right down to personal experience and the way we use our senses. How long did it take us to get used to using Siri? This card says that we will take to AI like a duck takes to water, even faster than we did with Siri. At the same time, the gray ground surrounding the throne and the gray heart leaning up against the throne call for caution and a good deal of detachment and cool-headed assessment. Without these, there could be great sorrow and regret. And of course, we're already hearing some people pushing AI with gusto and others warning that we will all end up dead because of it. Although the gray heart and gray ground back up this need for caution and assessment, the trees behind the Empress are healthy and much taller than she is. And this indicates that the benefits of AI have the power to raise the human family to entirely new heights. The crown of stars and laurel leaves back this up. The crown of 12 stars is the symbol of revelation and indicates a stunning result or discovery being revealed to humanity because of artificial intelligence. This revelation relates to a successful change to a new kind of consciousness, simply because intelligence is a function of consciousness. What this tells us is that although there are risks and problems that would have to be resolved, we would shift to a new way of using consciousness because our understanding of how consciousness works would change as a result of exposure to artificial intelligence. The laurel leaves at the base of these 12 stars indicate success in making that change. The scepter held by the Empress is a yellow globe, symbolizing an impact on the entire world, and the fact that it is yellow backs up the impact on consciousness and the intellect, since yellow represents both of those. The field of ripe grain in front of the throne represents the readiness to deal with AI in a way that feeds and nurtures all. And this, once again, is backed up in the lush green of the forest and its height. The river symbolizes the river of life that flows from the source, as well as the need to step up and face the challenges that AI represents. The river reminds us that things keep flowing, ready or not, and we can either deal with changes and challenges that AI represents, or ignore those challenges and end up going down the river and over the falls. The Empress here is sometimes said to be pregnant, and pregnancy symbolizes new life with new concerns, new learning, and new perceptions. In the same way that computers brought up privacy issues, that social media revealed how we talk to one another, that paying bills online opened us to phishing and financial scams, that the pandemic made a lot of people very health conscious, that the lockdowns revealed serious corruption in government, and that alternative media made us painfully aware of how naive we were. Artificial intelligence will reveal how limited our thinking is, how biased we are, and how much potential we hold. Artificial intelligence is pregnant with new life. The Empress is powerful, wise, generative, pregnant with possibilities, and generally nurturing. She symbolizes the emotional side of life and the need to take responsibility for yourself. Become your own Empress, make your own rules, and nurture yourself and your reality system with love and wisdom. The Empress is love and wisdom. She also symbolizes the balance between heart and mind, bringing what is in the heart to wise expression and what is in the mind to a heart-based reality that heals all. The Empress is a symbol of growth due to increasing clarity and community. This indicates that by using artificial intelligence, we will grow in clarity and community, even if we cannot now see how that might come about from AI. This card represents the number 3, and the 3 indicates the beginning of a new season in life. The Empress also represents the start of a 9-year cycle of creative rebirth in which destructive people and patterns are done away with. She warns of a brief period of sorrow following the coming together of heart and mind, but this is replaced by integrity, truth, and the resolve needed to take charge of life personally, to make one's own rules, and to contribute to family, also known as community. And that's the end of question number 2. Question number 3. What is happening with the spirit of the people living in the U.S. and the Western countries now in 2023? And the card I drew here was the 3 of Wands, and the card that fell out as I drew the 3 of Wands was the 5 of Cups. Now, when I saw this 5 of Cups, my hair kind of stood up, because last month when I asked how we could move forward with our evolution and restoring ourselves, the card I drew was the 5 of Cups. For that to come up again in response to checking in to see how we're doing was quite a message. It says that we are at the end of the period of mourning what used to be. We are almost done crying over spilt milk. And the 3 of Wands backs that up beautifully. So let's look at that. The 3 of Wands shows a man with his back fully to us, indicating that he has turned his back completely on something. He's wearing a headband and a long red robe with a green shawl over one shoulder. The red robe has a black and white checked section woven into it, and you can see by his right arm that he's wearing some armor underneath his robes. That same right arm is holding one of the 3 wands, and there are 2 wands standing behind him. He's standing on the bank of a large golden sea, looking at the sailing ships moving across the water. The far shore is quite distant, and the entire sky is a dirty yellow color. So last month, when I pulled the Five of Cups, I pointed out that it was known as the Lord of Disappointment. This card, the Six of Wands, is known as the Lord of Established Strength. What this tells us is that we are moving past our disappointment, anxiety, sadness, and spiritual exhaustion to a place of established strength, the strength needed to move forward. The figure in the Five of Cups had his back partially turned to us as well, but not as completely as the man in the Three of Wands. So we are turning. We're turning our back on something completely. The figure in the Three of Wands is wearing a headband, which symbolizes what might be called 360-degree awareness or an almost radar-like consciousness. His long red robe indicates great passion, but the green shawl on one shoulder points out the presence of naivete, immaturity, and lack of experience in dealing with the matters that are on his mind. The black and white section of the robe indicates that although things are coming down to black and white, right and wrong, good and evil, the resolve and the planning that would be needed to deal with things are not quite solid yet. Checkered means not solid. However, that section of the robe is very small compared to the rest. We are almost there. The figure is also wearing armor, which you can see on his right arm, and this symbolizes a readiness to fight, to take a stand, to protect the self, like getting dressed for the fight. However, he wears the ordinary robes to cover up that armor, indicating that he's not quite ready or willing to reveal his readiness to fight. He's holding on to one of the wands, and the wands symbolize wands themselves. You know, the suit of wands. They symbolize fire, drives, and deeds. Wands represent the will, spontaneous intuition, and the phoenix rising from the ashes. Wands warn adversaries with these words: I will act first, and that will tell me what I want. I will act first, and that will tell me what I want. This is a no-holds-barred position that moves first without warning, and thus cannot be distracted or headed off beforehand. Because there's no plan. It's a reaction. However, the two wands behind him warn against acting out prematurely without a conscious plan and some preparation. Since our question is about what is happening with the spirit of people, the Three of Wands represents a getting ready to do something. It advises us to be patient, that a suitable solution or opportunity will present itself, and that is when we will need to act. A side comment from my personal point of view, I hope that we're not doing what the American Indians did when the English showed up. The Indians tried to carry on with life as usual, sitting, watching, waiting, talking, hoping it would all get better and the English people would come to their senses, and then trying to fight back when it was too late. Anyway, that's my personal thinking. When you first look at this card, it appears that the figure with his back to us is gazing out across a desert, but that is not a desert. It's a sea of golden water with ships sailing on it. This brings up the question, are you seeing a desert before you, or are you seeing a golden sea of possibility? Is it time to cross to the other shore, or has our ship already left without us? This confusion between desert scene or golden sea is a stark reminder that your perspective is critical. If you think it's too late, it will be too late. If you think the future is loaded with possibility, that is what you will find. As a people, our expectation is going to determine what we get or what is possible for us. The distant shore holds so much that is unknown until we gather our courage, take risks, and cross the great golden sea. Set aside what family will think of you, what the costs will be, how much time it will take, worries about failing or sinking. How will you make a living? What new skills will you have to learn? And just allow yourself to gaze on that golden sea of possibility. Without taking any action yet, envision what you might be able to do on that distant shore. Develop your ideas and dreams, and then, when the opportunity presents itself, or you feel especially coherent and daring one day, take a step toward those heartfelt desires that are calling you. Each of us must make the journey alone, together, or be left behind. The dirty yellow sky represents the confusion caused by the forces of darkness working to obscure the forces of light. The new world being sought is in us. And the Three of Wands pushes us to discover ourselves and what we are searching for. What do you want? It tells us that we will be forced to settle polarities, inconsistencies, and contradictions within before we can settle them outside of ourselves. The fact that the Five of Cups came up again reminds us of the timing element of what we are going through, which is that the depths of what we are experiencing will culminate in September, October, and November of this year. Keywords associated with the Three of Wands are ambition, zeal, valor, risk, assertive, pioneering, sense of identity, pride, arrogance, seeking direction, boldness, interruption of misfortune, and collaboration. This card is associated with the energy of the sun in Aries and symbolizes the need for integrity. When integrity is reached, clarity is ours. And that integrity is the beginning of established strength. In closing, I drew an animal card as the symbol of the spirit of humanity at this time. And what I drew was the loon, symbol of reawakening of hope, wishes, and dreams. When the loon appears, we are reminded that we must pay attention to our dreams and must work to become lucid. The loon has a very haunting call that brings us deep, deep feelings of longing. That longing is always related to our need for deep joy, inner peace, pleasure in our connections to one another, and the freedom to be who we truly are. So let's summarize our three questions and what the cards are telling us. Number one, the first question was, what is the future of China over the next 3 to 5 years? And the card drawn was the Six of Pentacles. The Six of Pentacles is a card of great wealth and power. It indicates that China will continue to move toward success and power, and that many nations will go to China for aid and assistance in developing their country. China will be generous. However, the base warning of this card is that those with great wealth seldom give without strings attached. Those who go to China for aid will likely receive it, but they will be, or they should be, very careful to craft a win-win deal for all. The second question was, what is the best way for people to think about and approach the subject of artificial intelligence and its capabilities? And the card drawn was the Empress. The message of this card is that artificial intelligence is likely to be the mother that gives birth to a whole new world. The caution was to be aware that AI would bring all new challenges to the forefront, and that failing to anticipate these challenges, and especially failure to rise to these challenges, would bring very gray and difficult times. However, if we rise to the challenges presented, the gifts of consciousness that result will reveal the path to a whole new kind of human living wisely and well in a reality that is much closer to fourth dimensional existence. Number 3, our last question, was a checkup on the spirit of humanity. What is happening with the spirit of the people living in the US and the Western countries now in 2023? And the card drawn was the 3 of Wands with the 5 of Cups right behind it. I found this very interesting because in checking on the state of humanity in last month's tarot, the 5 of Cups was the card drawn telling us we were caught in anxiety, sorrow, and loss. So disappointed with everything. So we are still in some of that energy, but the main card this month was the 3 of Wands, which indicates that we are moving past the sorrow and anxiety we were caught in previously. And we're now beginning to stand on the shore of new possibilities. A golden sea of possibilities stretches out before us, and we have to decide whether or not to sail across that golden sea to new shores and new lands. We are encouraged to ask ourselves, how are we going to view the situation? What do we want in our heart of hearts? And then we are to watch for the moment to present itself when we can take action that will move us in a new direction our hearts want to go in. In every way, this is the card of getting ready to take some action. I also drew an animal card to symbolize where humanity was at and came up with the loon, Loon, symbolizing the reawakening of our hopes and dreams. So that's it for this month. I hope the questions asked and the cards drawn will bring a bit of clarity and give you some things to think about, some new perspectives to think about. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful month.